Protesters who've been rallying against a raft of reforms that would give the country's legislature more oversight of the government are promising to return to the streets on Friday. Sally Jensen has been following the protests for us and is outside the legislature. Sally Jensen, what's going on there?
Well, you can guess it from the tranquility here now, but last night this whole area was absolutely packed with thousands of protesters, by some estimates 30,000 protesters, angry about what was happening in Taiwan's legislature. From the morning until around midnight, crowds grew throughout the day, with many people arriving straight from work, and many were shouting slogans like "No discussion, no democracy," and "No democracy, no Taiwan." Some people of all ages were holding sunflowers and singing songs reminiscent of a student-led movement in 2014. There were soapbox speeches, and it was all very peaceful, but rather last minute and spontaneous. But nonetheless, it was very well organized, with NGOs and civil society groups making sure that people were taken care of and had bottled water. And everybody dispersed at around midnight after the legislative session ended, and now it's all being cleaned up. It's business as usual here, but the protesters have warned that they will be back on Friday.
And what exactly are they taking to the streets for?
Well, the protesters fear that the legislative reforms proposed by Taiwan's two main opposition parties could undermine the country's democracy. Here's what one protester had to say.
这个法案通过的话，未来这些立法委员们，他们就可以随时的把这些官员还有人民，就是完全不负理由的，就是叫来问话，然后请我们提供资讯。那只要主观上面没有符合他们认为我们应该要尽到的义务的话，我们可能会被罚款、罚金，甚至可能会有有期徒刑。所以这个才是今天这件事情为什么这么严重的。一个原因之一，就是主要是程序不公开，然后加上它通过之后会对我们人民的自由造成很大的一个隐忧。
Now, this comes just days after violence broke out in the legislature as the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, tried to stop this expansion of legislative powers of prosecution, saying that not enough discussion had been had on these reforms. And the main opposition parties, the Taiwan People's Party, or TPP, and the Kuomintang, or KMT, who now form a majority in the assembly, have said that there has been sufficient discussion. So now the DPP and the protesters are trying to block these bills from passing. And this division in the government is perhaps the biggest or first major challenge to the new president, Lai Ching-te, who took office just days ago. Now, the legislature will reconvene here on Friday to continue reading through the bills and voting on them. And the protesters have promised that they too will be back here for another round of protests then, which they believe is the only way to defend Taiwan's freedom and sovereignty.